Ndio nasema atutatoka. Mimi nasalimia batoto wa Kinshasa le 27 biso to le 28 donc tozaraka tokendete.
Well, that is the AFC M23 spokesperson Lawrence Kanyuka. And in that video, Lawrence Kanyuka is saying that M23 is in Eastern DRC to stay, regardless of the signing of the treaty between DRC and Rwanda that say that there should be a disarmament in Eastern DRC. The M23 has come out defiantly to say that it will not let go of the territories in Eastern DRC. They are not moving. They are going to stay in Eastern DRC. They're going to hold fast and defend their territories that they call liberated areas. In this video, I'm going to tell you whether that is a reality, whether that is plausible. Can the M23 retain the control of Eastern DRC even as the Doha talks continue? Is that something that the Kinshasa government will allow? Well, this is Bonifat. If you haven't subscribed, kindly subscribe and hit that notification button so that when I release something new on the Eastern DRC crisis, you get notified as soon as possible. We are here. We know that there was a deal between Rwanda and the DRC, but we are not moving from the territories that we have already taken. That is the statement that is coming from the spokesperson of the AFC M23, short but precise, saying that they will not move, and if Kinshasa wants to take these territories, then they should go and face them. This was said at Bukavu during the launch of the infrastructure projects by Lawrence Kanyuka when he hit back at Kinshasa after the signing of the treaty between DRC and Rwanda. Well, that is a situation that most would like to call easier said than done, because it will be extremely difficult for the DRC to grant the M23 the rights to continue governing these liberated zones with the consent coming from Kinshasa. And there are several reasons why this cannot be possible from Kinshasa. There is the heavy question of sovereignty and integrity. And allowing the M23 to govern will be seen by Kinshasa and much of Congolese public as a violation of national sovereignty. Remember, the M23 took these areas saying that they are operated separately from Kinshasa, and Kinshasa retaliated by removing the banking system and other administrative duties that were happening in Eastern DRC linked to Kinshasa that are now not operating in these controlled regions. That means that Kinshasa does not have its influence in these particular regions, that they are operating autonomously. And when the M23 now says that they want to continue operating these areas autonomously, it is going to be very difficult for Kinshasa to agree to that particular deal. And we're not only looking at what is happening right now, we are also looking at the precedents that will be setting moving forward. Because if you're talking about Kinshasa allowing the M23 to govern these regions autonomously, then there can be other regions with other rebels or other militias or other groups that will say that, okay, we want also to govern our own portion of land because we have seen that you've let the M23 take Bukavu and Goma. So that can cause a spiral effect, of course, with the many militias and groups in Eastern DRC. All of these militias and groups will now say that we also want autonomy of these regions. And we also have to factor in history. When such an event happened, there was a precedent that was set that if the M23 goes to a particular point, like what happened in 2013, that they will be reintegrated into the military. And that is something that has already been proposed in this new deal that was signed in Washington, that the M23 should be reintegrated into the FARDC. Those who want and those who don't want should be demobilized to go into civilian life. So that is the route that Kinshasa is likely to follow, and not to grant autonomy to the M23 in Bukavu and Goma. And we've not even talked about the political pressure that the current regime in Kinshasa is facing regarding what is happening in Eastern DRC. Most Congolese, mostly in Kinshasa and other parts that are not close to Eastern DRC, are seeing M23 different to the way many will see it from Eastern DRC. They are not regarding M23 to be friendly because they are fighting the FARDC. They want autonomy from the country. These are the rich areas of the country that have this kind of instability. Therefore, there is immense political pressure. Even if Felix Tshisekedi will agree to that kind of a deal of autonomy, there are political pressures that will push him not to sign a deal that will include the M23 having autonomous control of North and South Kivu. But away from what cannot happen, let us now talk about what can happen, some kind of a representation that can happen now from the Doha deal that Kinshasa will agree if you're talking about the influence that the M23 will continue to have in Eastern DRC. One major way that the M23 can still have some semblance of influence in Eastern DRC is through local governance, and this will be under the authority of the DRC, under the authority of Kinshasa. Kinshasa could well agree to some form of decentralized administration in the East, where local leaders, some sympathetic to the M23, will be allowed to hold office as long as they are not official M23 combatants or leaders. We'll talk later about the leaders of the M23 and the fate that will await them if there is some kind of a deal that will be agreed in Doha, because these leaders will be treated differently. We're talking about the leader of the M23 militarily, Makenga, Bertrand Bisimwa, Corneille Nangaa, and other figures that are well known to control what is happening in Eastern DRC. They're going to be treated differently by Kinshasa if you're talking about a deal that can be reached between Kinshasa and the M23. Another strategy that the Kinshasa government will allow concerning what will happen to the M23 going forward will be amnesty and political reintegration, whereby the former fighters will be allowed to form some political party that of course will be under the direction of the DRC government under Kinshasa. They will be able to represent their grievances through a political party in a democratic process. Of course, the Kinshasa government will have to give that security guarantee to Tutsi populations in Eastern DRC. That is like the core of what the M23 is standing for. They are saying that the Tutsi population in Eastern DRC is not treated as any other citizen in the larger DRC, and that is why the M23 emerged to be a force in Eastern DRC. Mind you, they still have the support of the Tutsi population in Eastern DRC. So if you're talking about the kind of strategy that the DRC government is going to impose in Eastern DRC, it has to align in some form with the M23, but not give the M23 the autonomy that they're saying that they want to control militarily Goma, that is North Kivu and South Kivu. But despite the defiance that the M23 has shown through the spokesperson Lawrence Kanyuka, it is important to say that there are two main things that the Kinshasa government will not agree to, that even if the talks in Doha continue for how long, the Kinshasa government will not agree to. And one is the M23 keeping open military control or raising its flag over parts of North Kivu or South Kivu with Kinshasa's legal blessing. That will be a no from Kinshasa. That is why the Kinshasa government is going through this entire process, signing deals with Rwanda, going to have negotiations in Doha, so that that will not take place, that these two provinces in Eastern DRC will not be granted to be M23 zones. And the second thing that the Kinshasa government will not agree to will be the international recognition of the M23 as a governing entity, that this province is led by the M23. It has the administration of the M23 and it is legal. The Kinshasa government will want to impose its own leadership in Eastern DRC. As I said, these can be leaders who are sympathetic to the M23 so that they can resonate with the population there, but they will not be current leaders of the M23 right now as we are speaking. They will not be vocal leaders of the M23. There will be people who will be acting as a bridge between the grievances, the real grievances of what is happening in Eastern DRC, and the authority of the state, that is the Kinshasa government. Well, I will keep you informed of the latest of what is happening in Eastern DRC regarding the signed deal and the Doha process. Keep it bona fide.